Good morning, everyone. I think we will go ahead and get started. My name is Charles Todd. I'm the Deputy Dean of Students in the college. I just want to welcome all of the parents in the room today. We are really appreciative that you are attending our session. We are going to talk about successfully transitioning your student to the college and hopefully give you a good starting point for what we know is going to be a four-year partnership with you. On behalf of the Dean of Students Office, I want you to know that we welcome hearing from parents, particularly if you have any concerns. We also want you to know that the empowerment of students is everyone's primary goal. It's really important to us that students take charge of their own lives and their learning. So with that, I want to introduce you to our panel. First, we're going to hear from Dr. David Albert. He's the Director of Student Counseling Service. And then we're going to hear from Sophia Chaknis. She's the Director of College Housing.
My name's David Albert. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm director of the Student Counseling Service. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the University of Chicago, and I'm going to say a few brief words about something that I suspect is very much on everyone's mind today. I thought I'd share some thoughts about letting go. Letting go of our children, even our emerging adult children, is not an easy thing to do. It is especially difficult to do in this era of the smartphone, which allows us to electronically tether ourselves to our children with such seductive ease. Gone are the days of the Sunday evening telephone check-in. Now it's all texts and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter all the time. Now we are able to instantly share pictures with our children of what we're eating for dinner. Never in my wildest dreams as a college student did I envision such a thing. It takes real effort to step back and give our children room to live their lives with some degree of autonomy and privacy. It's harder than ever to do this, but I would like to suggest to you that it is more important than ever to do this. The metaphor that comes to mind, and that is likely familiar to most of you, is teaching our children to ride a bike. I once asked my youngest son what his happiest early childhood memory was. His answer was very meaningful to me. He said, "My happiest memory is when you were teaching me to ride a bike, and I was pedaling, and I looked at you and realized that you were no longer holding on." This answer surprised me. My son took a pretty rough fall later that same day and was covered in cuts and scrapes and bruises, and I felt guilty about that fall for a long time. But he doesn't remember that part. What he recalls is the moment that he realized that he could do this difficult and scary thing on his own. This memory became a powerful one for him. It became part of a critical foundation of memories that he learned to draw upon for strength when confronted with challenges that he alone faced, whether in the classroom, on an athletic field, or in a social situation. And later today, when your child approaches Cobb Gate and prepares to enter the Bartlett Quad and join the class of 2020, you will look at your child and you will realize that it is time to let go. This may be harder for you than for your child, and so it should be. But I encourage you over the next days and weeks and months to let your child learn to ride. Cheer them on, and when they fall, as they inevitably will, know that we are here to help them up. This is an area where the University of Chicago excels. We have a myriad of remarkable support services in place available to our students. My service, the Student Counseling Service, is one of many examples. So please rest assured that when you leave this campus, your children will not be on their own, but they will be taking a very real step toward independence and self-reliance, and I'm confident that one day they will thank you for this most precious gift. Thank you.
Good morning. As Charles introduced me, my name is Sophia Chaknis, and I'm the Director of College Housing. And I don't have anything quite as lovely and inspirational necessarily to share with you as Dr. Albert, but what I want to talk a little bit about is the system that we run here, because we provide an awful lot of resources and support to your students. So the college houses, I went to a university where we lived in a dorm, and we often lived there for a year and moved off campus, and you knew your RA, and that was sort of the engagement that you had with housing. But you're giving us your students today into a house system, which is very, very different, and very rich and very wonderful. We work with the college, we support and create an environment that's both living and learning for the students. The houses themselves cultivate an assortment of intellectual activities and traditions, and this is a space where both informal and formal learning takes place. And it's active, and it's rich, and it's vibrant. And the houses are also beyond the intellectual engagement with students. We have rich cultural and social opportunities. We have intramural sports, for example, and resident masters host a wide variety of activities. We believe the house table is a very important place for students to engage and have conversations and push and challenge one another. And to that end, we have lots of staff available for all of these activities engagement with your students. As you moved your students in yesterday, you probably met the RA, you may have met your student's resident head, I hope so, and you may have in fact had an opportunity to meet the assistant director of housing, who are also professional live-in staff who oversee particular communities. And I hope that as you moved in yesterday, you had a chance. A few of you were lucky or unlucky enough to see me yesterday and introduce yourselves to me, and it was wonderful. The community that's inside the residence halls, so we have third and fourth year students who are RAs. They live in, they connect with your students. As they feed back to you this next week, they go on house trips, they lead social activities, they become confidants, and they also provide resources to students as needed. The resident heads, or resident head if some houses have a single person who's a resident head, these are graduate students, they're advanced graduate students. They are professional staff members here at the university, and sometimes they're actually faculty members who live in with the students. And these are folks who triage at a higher level than the RAs do. What I would like to say to you, though, is that the relationship between the resident head and your student you should see as somewhat sacrosanct. You are welcome to talk to the resident heads while you're here, but in order for the resident heads to be successful in terms of supporting your student, it is very helpful for them to have the trust of your student. And to that end, the primary relationship with the resident head is the students. That being said, we are always here to talk to you. There's a staff of 5 assistant directors, and a senior associate director, and always myself. We are available to take calls, and I answer calls at all kinds of hours, as does my professional staff. We want to talk to you, we want to engage with you. However, I do want to remind you that we are often bound by what we can share back to you based on laws, frankly, and what we can and cannot share. But to that end, we try to be very supportive of your students, we try to engage your students, and we make sure that students are receiving care for all sorts of things at both low and high levels. We also work very closely with the college and our other campus partners to share information so that it's not just the college housing that is helping to support your students, but also the engagement with the college and our other partners to make sure that we are addressing the student holistically, which is very important to us. Please know we are always available, and at the end of this, I'm happy to give anyone my business card who would like to connect with me. And I thank you for trusting us with your students and for allowing us the opportunity to grow and challenge them and be engaged with them. So thank you.
So once again, I want to welcome you on behalf of the Dean of Students Office. I want to talk briefly with you about the role of our office with students and with you parents. The Dean of Students Office consists of a team of advisors, deans, senior advisors, other staff who work with students. Our advisors are all full-time professionals who work with students across all 4 years, regardless of their major. We meet regularly with students. We work with them on degree planning, selection of major and minor, study abroad planning, career planning, postgraduate planning. We work with them as they apply for national competitive scholarships and fellowships, Hopefully some of you will be going over to one of the other sessions taking place this morning as well in Ida Noyes Hall, where you'll hear from the team of people who work with students on those areas. We also, of course, do all of this while we're trying to support students from a wide variety of backgrounds with different experiences and different needs. We certainly meet with students often and we provide them with a lot of support, but we also consider our students to be responsible young adults. So what does that mean in terms of our relationship with them? One, so far as we see them as responsible young adults, it means that we treat our conversations with them as confidential. They are, of course, protected by law, and we cannot share them without the express permission of those students. Parents who want to know about how their students are doing are encouraged to reach out to them directly. Give them a call, give them a text, ask them how it's going, what's going on. Our rule is that we always notify students if we have communicated with you. Our primary relationship is with students, and we don't ever want them to feel that we've gone behind their back, and so that we have that trust with them when they can come to us and seek help. Our goal is that students take charge of their education as they struggle to learn and to live. This is part of being a responsible young adult, and our advisors and deans encourage them to come and meet with them often, regularly, and get that help. So in thinking about our students as responsible young adults, what does that mean in terms of our relationship with you, the parents? With parents, we hope to have a partnership in seeing that students have a successful and productive college experience. Through the residential house and advising systems, we provide a substantial safety net for students, and we will certainly contact parents if the college is ever aware of a health or safety issue. Parents can partner with us most effectively by being patient and supportive of their student. Encourage them to ask for help if they need it. We've found that when parents are too quick to jump in and try to manage their students' issues, it prevents them from learning and from growing. If your student reaches out to you and says, I don't know what to do in a situation, we've found it's not effective for you to contact us first or the advisor. Our joint goal is for students to grow into self-sufficient adults. So what that means is that when they come to you and say, I don't know what to do in a situation, we would encourage you, the very first question you ask them is, have you talked to your advisor or have you talked to your RH? Continuing with the bike discussion that Dr. David Albert used, I think it's very important for students to take care of their own skinned knees. Finally, I'd want to add, in addition to the information that we've shared with you, there's other information that's available through our parent and family programs. If you haven't already, ask your sons and daughters to update their parent contact information in the student portal at my.uchicago.edu. We send out information regularly. There's the parent newsletter. There's other information about activities that are happening on campus at different times. You want to get that information, and the way that you will do that is to ask your students to update your information so we have the best way to contact you. And with this, we are going to turn it over for a Q&A panel. We have someone with a microphone who can take your questions, and we will do the best to answer them for you today.
It's actually more of a concern. When we dropped off our daughter yesterday, we saw that there were community bathrooms. And I know there's like a voting system, whether it's going to be male, female, or how it works. Just want to get some insight from you on how this has worked out in the past.
So we have, can you hear me? All right, so. Can you hear me now? I feel like I'm in that Verizon commercial. So the question about our community bathrooms, we do afford the students the opportunity to vote how they would like the bathrooms in their communities used. That being said, it requires a unanimous vote in order for that determination to be made. So if the students would like a bathroom that's presently designated as male or female to become a co-gendered bathroom space, the community is allowed to vote on that. However, if a single voice in the community, who can, by the way, remain completely anonymous, they may slip a note under their resident head door, then the bathroom stays a single-sex designated space. It requires 100% agreement in the community in order for the bathrooms to go to that direction. It's a really interesting question that you ask. There are some communities who've created what I will call, to the old lady up here, complex rules around their bathrooms with spinner wheels around hours, that like certain hours, so between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. the bathroom is gender neutral and anyone can go in. From 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. it's this gender. From 11:01 to 1 a.m. it's this gender. And so communities have tried to suss out and triage what works best for each of the communities. But again, we're very hard and fast that it has to be a unanimous determination in the community, because there's often students who feel uncomfortable and they may change their minds, which we also sometimes see. So sometimes by spring quarter, the first year students have decided that they want a different approach or that they've changed their sort of thing, and the community can re-vote in the start of another quarter if they choose to, but again, it requires a unanimous vote. Does that help? For the bathrooms, we've actually been really, really rather advanced here at the University of Chicago. We've had gender-neutral housing for decades, and the bathrooms have been in the same vein. I was going to say, what I didn't say is that we also have single gender living environments. So if a student lives on an all male or all female floor, then those bathrooms always stay to that specific gender.
This summer, the city of Chicago has sort of been famous nationwide for high murder rate, high crime rate. What can you tell us to make us feel better about the safety of our students?
I'll go first. So this, for me, is a really rich opportunity to encourage you all, to encourage your students to exercise some wisdom. For those folks who didn't grow up in a city, you've grown up in a more agrarian or rural place, or just a town as opposed to a city. This is an opportunity. We have this conversation with your students, but we encourage you to support them. Don't walk around at night with your headphones on. Don't sit at a bus stop at 11 o'clock with your laptop open. Be aware of your surroundings. Be engaged with what's going on around you at any given time. You would like to know what sort of safety protocols we have in place. So within the residence hall communities, every one of our desks are manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by professional staff. They're all adults. Unlike many other universities that have college students that man desks at night, we have professional staff that actually man those desks. We have a very robust blue light system across campus, and if you all were here last night, you probably noticed there are these folks that are out in blue on street corners all over the Hyde Park area, particularly around the campus area. They start at 5 in the evening, and they run until 9 a.m. the following day, and they're always available and can triage anything that's sort of happening in the area. If you look at the statistics for Hyde Park versus, say, Lincoln Park, we're actually on par in terms of Hyde Park and Lincoln Park in terms of our crime rates, actually. So in that sense of things, we have a luxurious moment of sort of protectiveness around the Hyde Park area and around our campus. But again, I encourage you and your students to please be mindful and to be thoughtful. I don't live on campus. I live on the corner of 53rd and Ellis, if you want to come by. And I walk home from work by myself. I walk through the neighborhood. I have never had a problem. I am very thoughtful. I don't walk around with my iPhone in my hand at night. I pay attention to what's going on around me, and I have not encountered any issues, which is just to say that I try to be very active and thoughtful. And I would encourage you to encourage your students to do the same.
All right. Make sure you can hear me. Could you maybe also say something about the safety presentation that will be given to the students from UCPD and as part of the student life meetings?
So I was going to say, your students will be meeting with UCPD. They're coming into their life meetings during the course of orientation week. The students are going to be meeting with UCPD during their orientation week, and they will be given some advice. They will be given make sure that there's access to resources. We typically ask students to program into their phone the UCPD number so that they have that. There's also a community life program that's put on by one of our offices, UCSC. I'm like, it's an acronym. I'm trying to come up with it. As part of civic engagement, which talks with the students about how to be thoughtful if you want to take public transportation, how to be engaged with the community, but understand where you're living, to introduce them to this amazing city, but also to underscore for them that you're in a city and its importance. Your students will go on house trips on Monday evening. Many of those are going into the city. They will go with resident heads. They will go with RAs. They will go with house OAs. Hopefully you had a chance to meet some of these people. They will take your students with them. They will teach them how to navigate the systems here, the public transportation systems, and talk to them about how those things work, and talk to them about times and places they might consider not going in the evening, especially alone. So we talk to students very actively around that, and we try to teach them very actively how to navigate the public transit system here.
Just jump. I'm not an expert on this, but I'll just say a couple of words. I think Hyde Park, as I understand it, and I've sat through many presentations from our police department, which is really quite a remarkable police department, is one of the safest neighborhoods in Chicago. And it's one of the reasons is that our police do such a remarkable job. They have a very robust presence on campus. You see them everywhere, and so this is a relatively safe area. And it can sound like a mixed message. It's a safe area, but don't wear your headphones at night. The reality is, it's an urban environment. And no matter how good a job our police do, and no matter how much we look out for one another, there's always the potential for crime. We're in a city. And so I think we try to make sure our students get both messages, that they're not scared to go out and live their lives, but they also learn how to be responsible urban citizens.
Just in terms of some other resources that we provide, we do also have a very robust shuttle service that runs all around the neighborhood. There's an app that they can download to their phones, which shows them where all the buses are. So if they're in their library at night, they can be in there, pull up their phone, see when the next shuttle's coming, if they're going to head back to their dorm or to a restaurant, if they're going a little further away. It's a really wonderful resource. We have a Dean on Call program. Those students will also be asked to program that number into their phone. So if there's someplace they have an issue that's going on, they can reach out to the Dean on Call. That's 24/7. That's always available to them as well. I will echo what both Sophia and Dr. Albert said. Hyde Park is really in the midst of the city, an incredibly safe neighborhood. I myself have lived here for 14 years, walk all over the neighborhood, to and from work, in the evening, walking my dogs. It's a wonderful, rich, and diverse neighborhood that has a wonderful community feel. Unlike other schools of many of our peer institutions, you will often see that the faculty don't always live in the same neighborhood around the university where they're located. Well, that's not the case here in Hyde Park. We actually have a very, very large number of faculty members who also live in the neighborhood. This is their home. Your students will run into them and they're out getting coffee or going to get some groceries as they're just walking down the streets. I think all of us who live here and make Hyde Park our home feel that this is a wonderful neighborhood.
My neighbor was put in a situation last year. Her son attempted suicide at college, and she was only notified it when some clerk called her about insurance. I just wonder, do we know if something dire happens to our child, if she attempts suicide or if he gets in a car accident or something happens to him? What if they're not telling us? I mean, especially in this case of mental illness, how do we know what's going on with our kids?
So I think as I mentioned, we obviously do have a relationship with the student. And so in our first response to students, and if it doesn't arise to the level of their health or safety, we wouldn't be contacting parents. But in the type of situations that you described where there's a health or safety concern, that's a situation where we would be reaching out to you and providing you with information. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say about that as well.
I would say that in the counseling service, we're more restricted in what we can share. but the dean of sorry, can you hear me? In the counseling service, we're often we're very restricted in terms of what we can share without a student's permission. But that's not as true for the dean of students office. So in a circumstance like the one you're describing, I think it's fair to say you would hear from the dean of students office. Not necessarily from us, but from the dean of students.
Good morning. I actually have two questions. One piggybacks on safety in terms of we've just been walking out to the lake and then kind of running along the lake. Is that safe for students alone, or is that something they really should do? And buddies, and my second question actually has to do with housing in transition. This is a later transition, but if they do study abroad, how does that work?
Sure. I think the lake is a really remarkable resource that we have here in Chicago. We are very fortunate to have it. I know that all the members of our community who enjoy biking, running, walking, swimming take part of that. There's also even activities that take place along the lake at different times. You'll hear later from your students, probably in the middle of winter, they'll go out there very early in the morning for a wonderful tradition. So the lake is a wonderful resource. But again, I think it's like any part of the city. If you are out someplace in the middle of the night, you want to be smart and make sure that you're aware of your surroundings.
You want to know how your student gets back into housing if they study abroad? Is that the gist of it? So we guarantee housing here at the University of Chicago for all 4 years, which means if your student goes and studies abroad, and their housing is canceled, and when they want to return, we give them the access and ability to request a return to housing when they come back. The difficulty we have sometimes is in getting the student back into the house that they left. So there's 38 communities, and we're usually full. I'm at just under 99% full right now. So when your student comes back, we will get them into housing. The question is whether we will get them into their house that they wanted to. So they don't lose their seniority in the community. So if they want to, in the next quarter, they can try to come back into it, or if it's in the spring quarter and it's for the fall lottery process, they can lottery back in as if they were members of that community, so they can come back into the correct house. But yes, they can. We work really hard to put them back into the community that they left, but we certainly will continue to provide them housing.
Hi, good morning. So just wanted to check, is there any kind of signs that we should be careful about? We live really far, we're going to be in India. So when they're talking to us, a lot of times they don't want to share their problems thinking parents will worry. But are there some signs that, with your experience, you might be able to share with us?
I just want to make sure I understood the question. You're asking about, are there signs or things that should be concerning to you? I'll take a shot at this. It's a tough question to answer in some ways because it's really has to do with the individual, right? I think you all know your children better than anyone else, and the kinds of things you might expect are some difficulty initially adjusting, right? And that's going to be different for different students. For some students, this is going to, the adjustment to the university is going to be very smooth, right? Some students, even who have never shared a room with anyone before, who've never really been far away from home before, just take to college like a fish to water. Other times, students who have been to summer camp every summer for 10 years in a row, and which is not an exaggeration. I mean, some I've seen that. All of a sudden, come to college, and it's tough. So it's hard to predict. I would say that if you're hearing things that seem out of character over a prolonged period of time, and I'm going to try not to be vague, but think months as opposed to a month, right? Then you might want to, your ears might perk up, and you might want to talk with your child about how are things going, and I'm far away, and maybe we would normally talk, but And this might be an instance to mention, my understanding is there's a counseling service available to students at the university. And one of the things you all should know is that students use our service very frequently. So, and students don't always know that, the ones who aren't using a counseling service. So last year, for instance, over 20% of all university students used our service at least once. So it's helpful to know that. This is kind of an aside, but it's helpful to know that, to mention it to your child if you think it might be useful to talk to somebody who can lend an impartial ear, because you can reassure them that it's not that unusual a thing to do. The things that I think would raise red flags earlier rather than later are the kinds of things that are probably common sense, right? Like if you hear, I haven't slept in days, or I just can't stop crying, I can't get myself to go to class. It's unusual, but if a student is struggling in a way that's preventing them from doing the very basic things they need to do to be students here on campus, that's a time to act sooner rather than later. And we're obviously not the only resource. You have housing, and you have advisors, and maybe some of my colleagues can speak to those resources. But I hope this was helpful. Okay. Happy to talk afterwards, too.
I think, just to follow up, I would say, if you start to have any concerns, something doesn't feel normal, you should always, always feel like you can encourage your student to talk to their advisor. They have required meetings with their advisor. For first years, they have to meet with their advisor every single quarter in the first year, in the first 7 weeks before they're going to be allowed to register for the next quarter. So we get them in. After that, they're only required to meet with their advisor once a year. But those are just the minimum requirements. So if they say, well, I've already seen my advisor once at the beginning of the quarter, it doesn't matter. Encourage them, say, well, you've got this problem, or I'm hearing something from you. Have you gone to talk to them to ask what resources are available, or what other programs or offices on campus that they can connect you with? There's a lot of resources. The advisors often serve as a hub to help students connect to those resources.
And from the housing perspective, we try to promise students privacy. We don't promise confidentiality. So they may start a conversation with their RA. They may start a conversation with their resident head. You may always call the assistant director and let them know you have a concern about your student, and then they will begin the triage process to connect with the student to see if there's something alarming going on, if what's taking place. They didn't want to tell you there was a breakup. They didn't want to tell you they were struggling with something else. So resident heads serve in the role of touching base with students and making sure things are going well. Couple of caveats. I know 4 or 6 hours sometimes seems like a long time when you haven't talked to your student. It's not. I got a phone call at 3 a.m. once last year from a parent who said it would have been 3.5 hours, and that they could see that their student's iPhone was at this particular location. And I said, yes, ma'am, that's a college housing building. And she said, my student doesn't live there. And I said, I understand, but they're probably visiting friends. She was incredulous to this. We went and found the student and asked her to call her mom. We will always ask our students to connect back with you all when you are concerned, or when we find them because you've asked us to help you connect with them. So just know we push back in that capacity to try to encourage them to connect back with you when you all are concerned. But that being said, the resident heads serve to check in on students. We call it a wellness check sometimes. They check in with students. They make sure students are doing okay, and encourage them as needed to triage the situation upwards if need be to another resource.
If a student does reach out to student counseling services, do they have a triage process for determining how quickly they can get in? I assume the regular health services has a triage as well.
So I'm not sure if I caught the last part of the question. So how do we triage and think about services for counseling, and the same for health? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So I'll give you my shortest possible answer, and then again, happy to speak at greater length. And also would direct all of you to our website. We have a website. It's wellness.uchicago.edu, and that covers the counseling service, the health service, and our health promotion department as well. Long story short, at student counseling, you don't have to remember any of this. It's all on the website. But just to give you a sense of things, we're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. During those hours, a student can walk in if they're experiencing a crisis, and that's subjectively defined. So that just means I need to talk to somebody today, maybe right now. I really can't wait until tomorrow or the next day for a routine appointment. We always have 2 clinicians on call ready to meet with a student. If a student just wants to schedule a routine appointment, maybe this is a student who has never lived with a roommate before, and they just they don't know how they're going to get through the quarter even. And they just want to have a safe place to kind of talk out loud, think out loud about that. We always offer our first, called an intake appointment, within 5 business days, usually more quickly. And by the way, after hours, on weekends, 365 days a year, we have 2 clinicians on call to handle crises that occur at those times. On the health side, their hours are a little different. It's Monday through Thursday, 8 to 6, Friday, 9 to 5, Saturday. They have Saturday hours, 9 to 1. They always encourage students to call ahead to make an appointment. But if a student walks in, that student's going to be meeting with a registered nurse who will conduct a triage and direct the student to an appropriate level of medical care. After hours, they have a nurse advice line, so if you were to call the main health number, you would get connected to a nurse who would conduct triage over the phone.
I'll try to present the question as best as I can. It's a difficult question to present, my opinion. All over the news last week were the events at UNC Chapel Hill regarding the sexual abuse of this young lady by a varsity member. And under that background, I couldn't help but keep on hearing the statistics that 1 in every 4 female college student across the United States will have had one experience of sexual assault in varying degrees. I hate to ask that statistics to you. You don't have to tell me, but I am curious as to how the school handles issues like this. In the student orientation week, are you going to tell the students that it's a zero tolerance policy with regard to that matter, or substance or alcohol abuse?
So, in terms of our training and information that we provide to students, there's a couple of resources that we provide for entering students. First is that all students over the summer have a required training that they take online. Some of them may have talked to you about that as they were completing all their required tasks this summer. And then the second time that they will have a conversation is going to be as part of orientation this coming week. So we bring in a group, we have our facilitators from the Title IX office who will speak with all students, talk about the process for handling any type of complaints, issues, harassment that might arise, any gender-based violence of any kind. It's very important that we share those resources with students right from the beginning and make sure that they are aware, and also make sure of the standards of our community and what we accept and what we don't tolerate, and that we lay all of that out right from the very beginning. In addition to that, we are now required by law to provide continuing training every single year to students when they come back. So not just our first year students, but every single student, undergrad and graduate student in the university will be going through Title IX training mandatory training every year when they return to school. So all of our students and staff will be doing that this year and beyond. There's a website, umatter.uchicago.edu, where students can find resources on Title IX and other support services. I would encourage you to take a look at it. It has information about the process, and you can also find information and statistics from our most recent campus climate surveys. So in terms of the statistics that you're interested in, all of those are laid out from our most recent campus climate survey. In addition, there is a parent session today that you can go to. It's called Title IX on Campus, and that will be going on this morning as well. And so our Title IX officers will be there and more than happy to answer specific questions about the process there.
I just wanted to follow up with that. When my daughter was here for Perspective Students Weekend, she's met some students who are, and one of the boys had said to her, any crime, that happens to you, go to the University of Chicago police. But if it's sexual assault, go to the city police, not the University of Chicago police. And I just wondered why he had that perspective, if you're aware of why he didn't. To me, it seems a lack of trust of the UChicago police to resolve that issue.
I'm surprised to hear that, actually. We would, I think with anyone who's involved in any type of crime, we certainly would involve them to report that to the university police. I think for students who are involved in any type of gender-based violence that would fall under the Title IX area, our first response is to always make sure that students are aware of all of their resources. So not all students in those situations are comfortable going to the police, whether that's our police or city police. Sometimes they are looking for resources and support, counseling services, other types of accommodations in terms of how it's impacting their academic work here on campus. Other times, students want to pursue a disciplinary process against another student. So we make sure that they're aware of all of their resources and support them through whichever process they choose to pursue. But if we would certainly encourage them, if they want to talk to the police, to go and see the university police. So yeah, I'm surprised. That's the first time I've heard anyone mention that.
I'll just chime in and say, anybody who attends the You Matter presentation, I suspect they'll go over this in great detail. I suspect that the You Matter presentation, you would hear about this in great detail later today, but just a couple words about some of the options that are available to a student who is maybe not sure whether they want to officially report an incident to the police or to the administration in a way that would trigger potentially a police investigation. There are a number of confidential resources on campus also available to students. And we are generally a confidential resource at the counseling service. We also have specially trained confidential advisor who's gone through 40 hours of training around these particular types of legal matters, not just the clinical matters, but the legal matters, which can get kind of complex. And I also can't imagine why this advice would have been given to go to Chicago police. But it is true that sometimes students get confused about who do I go to if I want something to be pursued? Who do I go to if I want something to remain confidential? And so the university is going to great strides to get all that information out there. And I think there's going to be more and more of that this year because we're always trying to balance a robust response with a robust prevention, right? And so, getting information out there is key to both of those efforts.
Hi, good morning. I have a question. What percentage students live on campus and what percentage students live off campus? And the second question is, do you have a safety zone? Let's say students cannot pass beyond a certain street for their safety. Or, the third question is, does students need to reapply their dorm every year?
So I have 3,300 and change beds that are almost always 100% full. So I'm not sure what the size of the college is actually at this juncture, Charles.
Close to 6,000.
So I house roughly a little bit more than 50% of the college students at this time on campus. First-year students, obviously, as you guys know, have a requirement to live on campus. I can give you the statistics if you really want them for the number of returning students I have. 74% of second-year students live on campus, and then the number drops off, as you can imagine, given the number of beds I have for third and fourth year students. We have third and fourth year students who live on campus always. I would love it if they all stayed on campus. I think it's great. The engagement piece is wonderful, and it's incredibly rich for the community as well as for the students. And we have continued to construct our buildings with an eye towards the evolution of the student in terms of the room spaces themselves. So if you went into any one of our buildings, you'll see that we have apartments in many of them, and because we know that fourth-year students don't necessarily want to live in a shared double, so we offer a variety of housing types in order to encourage students to stay. With regards to reapplying for their dorm, is that what you asked? In the spring semester, we do ask that they commit to returning to campus, and we have a process by which students choose their rooms in the spring quarter for their rooms for the fall. It's not a reapplication process like you or a student did this go round to get into housing. We assume they're staying unless they tell us that they're not, and then they choose their room in the spring quarter for the fall quarter.
We have time for another one or maybe two questions.
Yeah, can you tell us about your policies for alcohol and drug use? Say someone in the dorms clearly has alcohol or drugs. Do the RAs, are they required to report that? What happens?
So alcohol and drugs in the building. We follow the laws. Students under 21 are not allowed to drink, and we do not have a tolerance for drugs. That being said, we also try to manage situations in college housing at the lowest possible level. So when I went to school, I was the RA. I patrolled the hallways and poured out the booze and wrote reports and bounced it up disciplinary chain immediately. We try, actually, in college housing, we recognize that our students are experiencing a college experience and that it's a growth opportunity for them. So there's no drinking in any lounges, ever, regardless of the age of the student. There's no drinking in hallways, ever, regardless of the age of the student. And we work really hard with the RAs and the resident heads so that they are actively engaged with their communities and aware of what's taking place. I don't have any more ability than you guys do from afar to seize your students should they choose to have a higher ed experience that involves trying drugs or alcohol. But that being said, we're not a community that condones the behavior. We do not allow smoking in the buildings of any kind, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana or some other drugs. If we find students with drugs in the buildings, we have UCPD confiscate those drugs. We do not allow that, and there are disciplinary proceedings that take place. But if a student is smoking marijuana in their room, and they do in the winter sometimes, it's a conversation that begins with the resident head about the impact that student is having on the community, and also a conversation about where this behavior might be coming from. How can we address this? Is this your way of reducing stress? Is this your way of reducing anxiety? What's taking place? So it's a thoughtful conversation, and then as necessary, it becomes a disciplinary matter.
Sure. We have time for one more question, I think. So I'm not sure I heard all of the question, but it sounded like you were asking about a recommendation in terms of where students should and shouldn't go beyond the university boundaries if they're living off campus. So, it's a good question. I think they'll certainly get some conversations about that when they have their safety meeting with UCPD. I think any student can explore the area around Hyde Park and get a sense of whether or not they would feel comfortable or safe in any of those particular areas. But beyond going and saying, this particular street or you shouldn't cross or anything like that, I'm not sure that I could give very specific advice about that. We have a wonderful, rich neighborhood here on the South Side. Again, as I mentioned, I myself live here in the community and walk all around, and so I think if students should just explore their own comfort level and engage with the neighborhood and the areas around here to the extent that they feel comfortable doing so.
I'll just add a quick thought. You know, the longer you live here, the better you get to know the community, and the more you have a better sense of, oh, that's a great place to live, or I don't know, that's getting into an area where I'm not sure I would be comfortable living. I think you can ask around, but the way you really get to know a neighborhood is by living in it, exploring it, and just coming to know it over time.
I just wanted to follow up on that gentleman's question. You talked about a student that's actually maybe using marijuana, but what if your child is in a room where the roommate is the abuser and then is very uncomfortable? What sort of process or approach do you use, and can they switch rooms right away, or how do you handle that?
So there's a couple of things. So I will speak broadly first to general roommate conflict, aside from potential discomfort with a roommate who may be having an exploration in their late teens, early 20s. We encourage you to encourage your students to do that, which is actually very difficult, which is to have a conversation with your roommate. If the roommate's borrowing things, doesn't seem to respect the time that they need to sleep, those sorts of things. That being said, the RA and the resident head for roommate disputes are always available to begin that. If you have a student who has a roommate who is in unhealthy behaviors, whether it's drugs or other substances, or they're concerned about the well-being of their roommate, they're crying, don't seem to be going to the dining hall regularly, absolutely positively, your student should talk to their resident head. They should begin the conversation with the resident head and talk about what they're experiencing and what that looks like. To answer the question, do we do instantaneous room changes? No. I don't have the open bed spaces to do that, and most times students don't actually want to leave their community, which is also a secondary issue. I occasionally have a bed space, but the only bed space that's open is a community on the other side of campus or something along those lines. What we try to do is to work with the students, both of them, to ensure comfort in the space, in the room. It's their home, and we take that approach very seriously, that this is your shared space. It's different in how that can be navigated very thoughtfully on both sides. So we try to start there. Obviously, if a roommate situation escalates, then we respond accordingly, and we certainly can move students, but our first effort is to try to actually repair what's taking place and manage it, because they shouldn't be smoking in the building to start with. But we certainly try to manage these things at the lowest level to ensure that people have the greatest chance of success, as opposed to just removing someone outright. But your student should always feel comfortable going to their RA or their resident head as a point of a triage to begin a conversation.
So with that, I think we're going to wrap up. We really appreciate all of your questions and coming here today. Hopefully you've got copies of your O-Book and you're aware of all the other sessions that are going on this morning. The three of us are going to be up here for a little bit before the next session, so if you have any other individual questions and want to ask us, please feel free to do so. So thank you all.